Hello and welcome to the Property Management Show. I'm your host, Alex Osenenko. My day job is the CEO of 4.5, a marketing company that works exclusively with fee-based property management companies. I spent the last 7 years of my life helping property management companies become more successful by improving sales, marketing, and operational efficiency. On this show, we'll deconstruct success into its key components and invite subject matter experts to help you improve every facet of your business. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show. So our topic today is how to compensate a salesperson for your property management company. And if we have a chance, we'll get into specifically on when you should hire that salesperson, and maybe even shed some light on how to find and interview and retain the best salespeople for your property management shop. So to help me work through this, I have a guest here. His name is Duke Dodson. He runs a company called Dodson Property Management, and Duke's been, he says, probably one of the fastest growing property management companies in the U.S. that I know of. And he's in the perfect position to speak on the subject. Duke, how are you?
Good, thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome, absolutely. So tell us just a little bit about your company and your story on when did you guys first decided to have a salesperson, and how far were you in your growth trajectory?
Sure. I started my company in 2007, and it was just me. So on day one, I was the business development person or salesperson.
Right.
We got to about 300 units or so under management is when I decided to hire the first true full-blown business development person.
Do you mind if I stop you right here for a second? Just ask you how long did it take you to get to 300?
About 3 years. I did about 100 units a year when it was just me doing it.
Pretty good. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we were about 300 units, 3 years into the business. The reason I decided to hire someone, I was a good salesperson, but I'm not a great one, and I was doing business development / sales maybe 10 to 20% of my day because I was doing other things. And so I figured if I could find somebody better than me to do it and to do it full time, I should grow, multiple times faster than I'm growing on my own. And it was true. So I averaged about 100 units a year, and it was just me. And then when I brought this guy aboard, we started averaging about 300 plus units a year.
Wow, 300 plus units a year?
Correct.
Now that's an escalation that
Sure.
I'm sure most of our listeners would love to participate in. Now, there's also something to be said, maybe on the next episode you and I will riff on, setting up systems to be able to accept this kind of growth.
Right, sure.
But most people, 10 properties a month is a good goal for a lot of folks, 10 net properties per month.
Sure.
So I think the 300 is a great kind of launching pad for the business development. So how did you I don't know of any information out there in the NARPM community and the property management on compensation for the salespeople. So how'd you come up with a compensation strategy?
So yeah, you're exactly right. Early on, I had no roadmap or game plan of how to do it, so I had to make it up. So I looked at first I looked at the type of person I wanted in this role, and then figured out, okay, what kind of compensation model are they used to? So it's rare you're going to find somebody who has sales experience and a lot of property management experience. There's only so many folks in this role now, so unless you're going to poach this person from another company, it's going to be rare to find the person that has both sales experience and property management experience, specifically single-family management experience. So I looked at other types of salespeople that I wanted to attract, and I looked in the pharmaceutical sales, medical sales world, those types of people, high energy, results-driven type business development folks, and looked at those types of compensation models. And so they had a lot of, some had some salary plus commission, some had all commission. But what I liked about those models were the trails. So my first compensation plan I set up with that guy, it was straight salary, straight commission, no salary, because I couldn't afford to pay a salary when I was that small. But I built it so if he did well, then year 2, 3, and 4, he would really start to do well. And it would be hard for him to walk away from it because of the trails. But he could earn a good income, but he'd only earn a good income if he performed.
So you got him on more of a recurring compensation where he got to eat a little bit of what he killed over time, correct? So he had every account brought him a certain percentage?
Exactly. So if he sourced a single family home, for example, he would earn 25% of all revenue associated with that property for 1 year. If we retained that property for year 2 and year 3, it would drop to 15%, then 5%, and year 4 it would drop off. So
That
by
is a
year
lot of
3,
money.
it was, and honestly, it was too much.
Right. I'm thinking, yeah, pharmaceutical or property management. Yeah, that sounds like a compensation is highly, it's highly equalized. Yeah, you can make a lot of money.
So what I learned was more of the industry standard for that position was 25% year 1 and then nothing year 2 and 3. I think a lot more folks were doing that. Now, I will say you get what you pay for, right? So if you really want that top-notch rainmaker, they're going to need to make a good living. I think it's really for a company to figure out what do they need, and you may not need that rainmaker. You may need, if you're getting a lot of warm leads, for example, SEO leads and content-driven leads, 4.5.com type of leads, you don't necessarily need a rainmaker. You need someone who has some sales skills. You need someone who has good organization skills to respond timely, respond professionally, set up presentations, go through presentations. But that person doesn't need to make $150,000 a year. They may need $60,000 to $80,000 a year for that type of person. If you're paying rainmaker numbers, you got to make sure they're bringing in rainmaker numbers, meaning they're not just order takers, they're not just taking what comes in the door in the form of a warm lead, but they're actually farming their own leads. They're out there building long-term relationships with investors and developers in your area. That type of person's hard to come by. That type of person needs $150K a year, but they should deliver that type of results as well.
Gotcha. Okay, very interesting. Gotcha. So, as for a younger company, full commission with 25% of ACV, which is annual contract value. Let's just get the terms because we're going to throw it out a lot. Annual contract value for each property is kind of what they got paid. And initially, you had a little bit of a continuation plan that dropped the commission, but still kept them interested in staying with the company as they got all this recurring income. My worry on the recurring is that you don't want your salespeople to get fat and lazy. You want them to be sharp, and as you call a rainmaker, love that term. How did you get out of that particular situation, or did you?
Okay, you broke up a little bit. Just run that question by me one more time, please.
Sorry. Well, so I felt like if you pay salesperson a recurring commission, they might get fat and happy. So I'm just curious, how were you able to get out of that situation, or did you?
Okay, so I will start with saying that now we're on our second business development person, and that person is on a completely different model. He's on a partial salary, partial commission. That commission's a one-time hit when they source something, so they're not going to get fat and lazy. But to answer your question, the way you keep somebody from getting fat and lazy is you hire someone who's not prone to become fat and lazy, somebody who's hungry and push. I think that's step one. And step two is if they become fat and lazy, you need another person or you need to change their compensation model, or both. But now we're on the much simpler. They get a salary, they get X number of dollars per new property, and so they have to keep growing each month in order to keep making decent money.
Gotcha. Absolutely understood. So, how many business development people you have? Do you have one or more than one?
We just have one now. Had one guy who's here for about 5 years, and he went on to another career. So now we're on our second guy who started about a year ago.
Gotcha. So, what do you think the realistic capacity? So let's agree on terminology. So inbound is the inbound lead, right? We're talking 4.5, AdWords leads, blog leads, all those, PMW, all those leads are coming into your business, referrals, versus outbound leads. Outbound leads is whether it's a cold call, whether it's a Toastmaster referral from the thing that he attends, or realtor referral from a relationship he built. Outbound and inbound. What do you think the capacity for a good, well-rounded business development rep? How many properties can they bring in per month?
So, because we have great vendors like PMW and 4.5, we have a very good SEO presence. because of that, we get a lot of warm leads. And so our goal for our guys, 25 units per month, so 300 a year. And to be honest, he'll hit in the winter it slows it down a little, in the summer it picks up a little. And when you spike the big client that has 10 or 20 or 30, your numbers will spike a bit. So he's on track to do that this year. But we're built so we can handle the client that has 20 units, 30 units, even 100 units. We can take that on. So if you have that capacity, your goals can be pretty lofty. If you don't have the capacity to bring on that many that quickly, I think 10 is a much more reasonable number.
Gotcha. But the capacity for the salesperson to perform and have enough time to follow up and do due diligence on every sale, you're saying is about they can do 25. They can book 25 a month, working 40 hours, working full time.
Yeah, he does 25 a month, and capacity is not an issue for him.
Gotcha. Okay. Very, very cool. So let me present something that I've helped one of my very good friends and property management owners implement in his shop, and it's been successful. I wanted to run this compensation plan by you, see what you think. So, I'm going to go very specific to a business that's about 200 to 300 units that needs 10 properties per month. Okay, that has an average rental rates. Nothing crazy, nothing like California here. So here's what I'm thinking. To hire a good person, and by the way, remind me to talk about where to hire a good person, because I'm finding this one place where you can poach the best salespeople, and they're ready to go. They don't love where they at, but where they at builds a good character. So anyway, going back to compensation plan. So I think paying a base to a person solidifies your commitment to them and their commitment to you. So I'm thinking $28K base, okay, and a 7% ACV payout on every deal. In other words, 7% of annual contract value, right?
1 year?
Yes, sir. Annual contract, right? 12 months worth of management fees plus the lease up. Average out, most property management companies out there calculate their annual contract value as around $170. $1,700, $1,700. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah. I guess depending on market, sure. That's in the ballpark.
In the ballpark, right? So at a 7% payout, you're looking at for 10 properties. If they close 10 properties per month, you're looking at about $1,200 in commissions.
Okay.
And $2,350 in base. Now, having said that, the salesperson is in charge of their own destiny. If they want to stay at 10, they can stay at 10. Or if they build relationships and go to 20, obviously they double their compensation. And in fact, I would actually recommend putting accelerators beyond 10. So in other words, if they get 15, the next 5 are at a 10% payout. So it really helps them overachieve and actually compensates them for the busy season because they have to work more, and it helps them build the relationships required to get more business in the future. So it looks like the full salesperson compensation and 10 accounts working full-time for a month is not difficult. You and I know it's not difficult. So $5,000 a month as a payout to a salesperson, it's a comfortable living in most places. Now you got to adjust for your market, right, Duke? Because here our average rent is $3,200. So that $1,700 annual contract value becomes, $3,600 annual contract value. So the compensation is adjusted, and the salesperson will make, 50% more, but then it's adjusted for cost of living because the rent is higher. So it's actually a fairly flexible model based on where you are. So far, what do you think of this sort of approach?
Yeah, I mean, it's not too dissimilar to what our guy's on now. Our guy's now on a $40K base. He gets $125 per new property, which, if you do the math, is probably not much different than what you're suggesting. We don't do the accelerator. However, I see the benefit of that. A lot of industries do that. The accelerator, it really, like you said, rewards the person when they're super busy. Also rewards the rock stars from the not so rock stars, and it keeps the rock stars there. Let's just say you're big enough, you have multiple salespeople, it's going to keep the rock stars there because they're making a good living. If you want to play devil's advocate to that comp plan, I'd say anytime you add complexity, you add the ability to mess things up. You add a little more administrative time and effort on your accounting team. You add more questions like, I thought it was this and it was this. So if as long as your systems are set up where your accounting staff that does payroll can handle the accelerator model without too much complexity, the salesperson gets it, and you get it to down to a science where there's not questions every month, where you're not arguing every month. That's the last. You want people to focus on growing. You don't want people to focus on arguing over details. So yeah, I mean, again, I think like you said, every market's different. So in our, for any position, I start with what experience does the client want, and then back into, okay, what skill set do you need to deliver that experience? And then you back into, okay, what skill for that skill set in my market, how much does that cost on an annual basis in form of salary and commission? And then look at, okay, let's build a compensation plan so it meets that need, right? So if you're in a market and call it, let's say 60K will get the job done, and your model works out to 60K if they hit their goals, then boom, I think it's a winner. I like the idea of some base. The first guy we hired with no base and straight commission, that was shortly after the recession. The job market was horrible. People were begging for jobs. Now the labor market is pretty tough. It's pretty hard to find people. People have more options today than they did 5-6 years ago. So I doubt I would be able to hire somebody today without a base. I think that almost everyone would prefer the base salary, a little bit less of an upside, than the no salary and a huge upside. Again, the exception are those rainmakers, the ones that want to make 150K and up, and that's usually not what we're talking about in this position.
Agreed, absolutely agree with you. So with that, and the reason why I put a percentage there, because I think I like the dollar amounts for simplicity, and as you call it, accelerators can be also simply imported. But I have a question. Who does your business development person report to?
Used to report to me. Now he reports to more or less my director of single family management, which is one notch below me.
Gotcha. And when you are look back in your journey to get to 300, when you were at 200, or even at 150, if you had a little bit of let's say funding, because a lot of our customers or a lot of people have other businesses and they're building a real estate management portfolio as part of it, so they have a successful sales business, something like that. They have money to invest. At what point would you hire that business development person, knowing what you know now?
I think it depends on two things. Number one, how important is growth to you? And I'd say three things. How important growth is to you, your risk tolerance, because if you don't need to grow and some growth is coming in the door, your staff's managing it fine, you're probably going to be less prone to hire that person than if you really want to grow and you're willing to, because hiring a biz dev person is a risk. You're paying this person a salary. If he doesn't grow at all, you're burning that money. So there is risk there. And finally, how many warm leads you have walking in the door now? If you've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 leads coming in every month, then it's really not that risky. So for me, I hired at 300 units. That, for me, it felt right. It probably was about right, but it did escalate my growth, exponentially, much faster than I was doing on my own. So if anything, I would have done it sooner because A, growth is very important to me. B, I have a pretty high risk tolerance, and C, I had leads coming in the door. So it didn't seem very risky to me to do it at that time.
That is very interesting. It's actually quite similar to my own journey in 4.5. Now that I'm kind of thinking through what you said, 3 years. So the first 3 years, I was the only salesperson in the company. I felt I could represent it best to the customer, and I put all the efforts into product. As you say, management. Management, same thing for us. We just manage marketing campaigns versus managing property and people. But at around year 2.5, I started having issues with missed opportunities. Right. 2.5 years. So in retrospect, if I wasn't a salesperson, because I am a salesperson, I grew up being a salesperson. That's who I am. That's who I identify with. So, it was hard for me to give up the control of customer experience initially when they just first picked up the phone and called 4.5. I want them to feel absolutely taken care of. Like the value proposition is absolutely clear. I know everything about the customer. blah blah blah, and it was hard for me to give that up. But about year 3 is where I just couldn't handle it, and I started building a professional sales team, and now we have 4 people, three people, and a customer success manager, but who is in charge of renewals and upsells within the company. But what's interesting, have you found any opportunities for you to upsell into your existing customer base? In other words, do you guys have new products coming down online, or any kind of new services that you're introducing?
So yes and no. So yeah, it absolutely frees you up to think bigger picture, which may mean you may think ways to upsell, services to add. I mean, obviously, a lot of people will add a sales division, which we did, and allow me to bring on the appropriate realtors. I could work with our investors, and then from a 30,000 square foot view, could figure out how to market those services to our client. That's just one example, but sure, we do offer some upsells and things like that. Our biz dev guy has his head down closing business. As he builds out his team, eventually I will probably pass it off even more to him as far as being a true director of business development, which would include other forms, marketing, not just biz dev and closing new business, but doing things to generate that business. Whether it's SEO, marketing campaigns, joining certain networking groups, things of that nature.
Gotcha. And as far as, so let's take a step back for a second, going back to the numbers I've discussed about the compensation plan. I have actually done a bit of unit economics math here to figure out, under this model, if you do acquire 10 brand new clients per month, what is the customer acquisition cost? And the customer acquisition cost is essentially your cost to acquire a customer, as far as marketing and sales, right? Marketing and sales. So if you have a average $1,500 a month marketing budget, and you pay the salesperson what we discussed, what I found is that the customer acquisition cost is about $500 exactly.
Okay.
So with a lifetime value of around $5,100, given the example that we used, less than 10%. So spending less than 10% of a lifetime value of a customer to acquire a customer is a great math. So if this works out, I'd put as much money as possible back in the business, right?
Sure.
And grow that portfolio. But having said that, we all base this stuff on annual contract value, and what it means is it's going to take you a year to collect.
Right.
And that means that you better have a good retention and good systems, good processes, good people to make sure you keep the customers. What is your average retention? Have you figured out, Duke, how long does an average customer stay with Dodson Property Management?
Yeah, we lose about 7% of our single-family clients each year.
Okay.
And that goes up a bit when the market spikes. Like we'll lose more in March, April, and May to the sales market. We'll lose some because we mess it up. We lose some because they want to move back in. We lose some because they foreclose. So I don't have a good metric for you for the average lifespan. I'm only 8 years old, so I don't have 30 years of data. I've just got 8 years of data, and we didn't really start tracking certain things until 1 or 2 years ago.
Sure, of course, yeah.
My guess is it's 3 to 5 years, but I couldn't tell you the exact number.
3 to 5, gotcha. Okay. All right, so one last thing. Let's talk about, we have a bit of a time, a few minutes, but let's find out how to find that right salesperson. And I found a lot of success going in the bank. Going in the bank and talking to a personal banker, but more even a junior role, somebody who's in a stepping stone before the personal banker, because banks have fairly aggressive goals. They hire smart people, and
Right.
they don't pay them jack.
Right.
Even though banks is where the money at, they don't pay their people very much at all, I've found. And we've had one of the best people in my company, 2 of them now, came from that background.
Right.
Have you had any experience with bankers in the past?
Not banker specifically. Customer service, yes. Existing sales, yes. So the first guy was a salesperson who, like I said earlier, did medical sales and that type of sale. Second guy came up through property management, but had good people skills. And so, the first guy had sales experience, went to teach him property management. The second guy had property management experience, went to teach him a little bit of sales. But yeah, I think yeah, what you're saying sounds right. The personal banker, the guy who's works with people, he's outbound marketing a lot, making calls that may be uncomfortable at times, those kind of things. He's already got that experience. And you're right, they don't make very much. They have that upside down the road. Do I become a financial advisor?
Correct.
Or do I go another route? And so, yeah, I think, folks that have some sales experience, maybe good salespeople in crappy sales jobs, people selling copiers, people trying to be a financial advisor, 1 out of 10 of those guys make it. The other 9 have to find sales jobs elsewhere. So I think some basic background in sales is usually important because they've already learned the basics, the fundamentals of prospecting and follow up and handling objections and asking for the sale. When they hear a no, digging and finding out why the customer is saying no, so they can then improve, come back to you and improve systems. I think that's something we haven't mentioned. I think is important too. Is in the salesperson, are you getting just somebody who can take orders and close business, or can you have someone that can shape the process? Because as a small company, in which most NARPA members are small or starting out small. The process is not already there. You have to create the sales process. You have to create that. The marketing you have to create once it comes in the door, how we hand it off to a property management, to our property management staff, and you're building checklists and you're building forms and procedures and processes. And a salesperson who comes from the property management side can help with that a lot more because they've lived in that world. And so, it's going to be hard to find somebody with sales experience and property management experience. If you can, God bless you. But if you can't, you're going to have to teach them the other side, but both sides are valuable, the management experience and also the sales experience.
Yeah, I have a take on this as well, Duke. So we found that we're not bringing any salespeople with digital marketing knowledge or experience at all. We found that we're so unique, we're so niche in this industry that we want to teach them our trade. We want to get them to participate in every kickoff call, visit customers. We invest a good 60 days of full-on training before we unleash them on the world of people like you.
Right.
But right, and the thing is that I don't want them to have, to some extent, marketing knowledge and experience, because what they know is probably wrong, or at least that's not what we practice.
Right.
Well, that's one thing. Second thing, it's a lot harder to find a person like that, and they will demand to be compensated accordingly without proving themselves first. And also found retail banking, and also retail is a great way to poach. So a lot of property managers say, "Well, can you help me write a Craigslist ad?" Or I can't. Nobody responds to my ad for salesperson, and I look at their ad, and I want to take it behind the barn and shoot it. Right, and never ever show it to people again, because the ad, we spend as much time writing our Craigslist employment ads as we are interviewing people as a whole, because it takes a lot of it. We put pictures, we sell our company, and I would recommend for property managers who don't have time to sit there and compile breathtaking ads, is essentially write up a quick job requirement, understand what it's going to look like, and go take a bunch of business cards and go to your favorite retail shops nearby and poach somebody. There are people who work in hourly rates who are absolutely great, and they're set for greatness. I remember I used to work at Radio Shack, and then I got promoted as a manager. I've been there for 5 years. Look, man, I was a very passionate guy, and if somebody approached me, a business owner, local business owner, and said, "Hey, there's opportunity there for you," I'd be all for it. I'm not saying I'm the best in the world, but I'd do a good job. And there are plenty of people like that out there.
Sure.
So, a little bit of walking around will land you a good person. But as far as, sales process, there are a bunch of resources. So one of the things, 4.5.com has a blog. We have a blog, and we actually have a book, The Art of the Sale, for property managers. So that thing pretty much spells out the sales process, or at least initially gives you an idea of the basic steps. LeadSimple.com's got a sales course and lots of stuff. There's lots of stuff out there. So once you hire that salesperson, just expose them to this content and then test them. Don't just set it and forget it. So,
sure.
But yeah, I think Duke, I really appreciate your time. Are there any parting words of wisdom?
I think that You did mention it, but I did think before you go to hire a salesperson, I think it's very important to have your ducks in a row so you're built for growth and ready for growth, because you don't want to spend all this money getting new business in the door only for it to go right out the door. So before opening the spigot, so to speak, you want to make sure you're ready for it. Second is, and you touched on it a little, is to really think about what values and what culture your organization has before attracting this person, because this person is going to be the face of your organization to a lot of people early on. They'll be the first and only contact for a while until they get in the door. And so they're going to speak volumes about who you are as a company, and finally just figure out what you want, right? What do you want? The cheaper, more affordable order taker just to process warm leads coming in the door, or do you want this person who's going to go out and get their own business? And understand those are two different things, that two different price points, but obviously two different sets of results as well. That's all I got, man.
Oh, sounds good, Duke. This was incredibly helpful. Thank you for your time and effort, and thank you for listening.
Absolutely, man. See you in Hawaii.
Hell yeah.